When God calls you out, 30 lessons from Moses. There comes a moment when God calls you out, not in judgment, not in anger, but out of hiding, out of the comfort, out of the life you built to simply survive. He calls you out of the ordinary and into the impossible. Maybe you've felt that tug, that deep internal whisper that tells you there's more, a life waiting on the other side of your fear. This is the story of a man who heard that whisper. A man who was not born for greatness, but a man called into it. His name was Moses, a Hebrew prince turned Egyptian runaway turned shepherd, a man who believed his life story was already finished. But destiny never closes the book. Listen closely, because his journey is your own. It holds the 30 lessons you need to answer your own call. Before the burning bush, there was the desert. Moses had committed a crime. Out of misplaced passion, he took a life. And then he ran. He fled his privilege, his family, and his homeland, trading a palace for a silent, unforgiving wilderness. For 40 years, he lived in obscurity. 40 years of tending sheep. 40 years of trying to forget the roar of his past. He was a man haunted by his strength and paralyzed by his failure. And maybe that's where you are right now. You've run from your purpose too. You've buried your potential under the sand of regret. You've doubted your worth because of a single mistake. You feel rejected by the world, but the truth is, you've rejected the purpose God placed inside of you. You are isolated, not by distance, but by fear. This is the crucible where every true calling begins. It starts in the silence. It starts in the running. It starts when you feel you have nothing left to offer, but the wilderness is not a place of ending. It is a place of preparation. Hear the first lesson whispered from the dust. 1. The call begins in obscurity. Moses was not in a temple surrounded by priests, nor was he in the Egyptian palace where he was raised. He was on the backside of the desert, a place of forgotten things and unseen labor, tending another man's sheep. This is the profound truth of the calling. God finds you where you are, not where you think you should be. The world waits for the spotlight. God speaks in the shadow. Your calling doesn't wait for your official credentials, your perfectly polished resume, or the approval of experts. It waits for your willingness. It waits for the heart that is still open, even when the lights are off. Stop looking to the great centers of power for your next step, and instead look at the ordinary ground beneath your feet. That is often where the sacred fire begins to burn. You don't have to be famous to be called. You just have to be available. The wilderness is your classroom. For 40 years, Moses lived in the quiet, unforgiving school of the desert. He learned patience, the rhythm of the slow flock, the long wait for the rain. He learned solitude, the clarity that comes when human noise fades away. He learned reliance on nature, and ultimately, reliance on the divine. The time you feel is wasted or lost in the wilderness is actually the time you are being honed. It's the vital season where your identity shifts from what you do to who you are. Embrace the long lessons. Don't curse the slow season. Cherish the discipline it imparts. The great leaders are not created in moments of fanfare, but in years of silent preparation. The strength required to lead millions across a desert is not built in a day. It is forged in the 40 years of wandering alone in it. This silence is training you for the raw. God calls the unqualified. When God appeared in the flame, Moses' first response was one of terror and massive inadequacy. "Who am I?" he stammered. He felt small, weak, tongue-tied, and utterly unequal to the task of facing Pharaoh. Maybe you echo that question every morning when you look at your own overwhelming purpose. You feel inadequate. You doubt your voice. But listen, God is not looking for perfect. He is not scanning the planet for the equipped. He is looking for presence. He is looking for a willing vessel. He delights in taking your weakness, your history, your perceived deficits, and turning them into the very stage for his strength. Your unqualification is actually your greatest qualification, because it guarantees that the glory will belong to the one who sent you, not to your own flawed power. Your past is not your prison, Moses' greatest and darkest sin, the act of murder, did not disqualify him from destiny. Think about that for a moment. God chose a fugitive, a killer, to bring forth the law of thou shalt not kill. This is the power of redemption. Your history, your greatest shame, the mistake that still haunts your sleepless nights, does not and will not define your ultimate destiny. God is not bound by the narrative you or others have written for you. Redemption is simply a divine redirection of your fire. It takes the same passion, the same intensity that led you into error, and redirects it toward your life's purpose. Release the chains of yesterday. God has already signed your pardon. It is time for you to walk free into your assignment. The calling always costs you comfort. Moses had built a stable, quiet, predictable life. He had a family, a home, and a flock. The call required him to leave security, trade his peaceful routines for chaotic responsibility, and return to the very place of his greatest danger and trauma, Egypt. Destiny requires you to leave the known to grasp the possible. Comfort is the quiet enemy of potential. If the call does not require you to stretch, to sacrifice, to risk your current stability, then it is likely not the call of God, but merely an extension of your own ambition. Be willing to trade the comfort of the familiar for the thrill of the unknown. The greatest rewards are always found on the other side of your greatest sacrifice. Doubt is a dialogue, not a dead end. Moses did not simply submit, he argued. He asked questions, raised objections, and challenged the practicality of God's plan. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. It is often the beginning of a profound dialogue with the divine. It is okay to question, to struggle, to feel the instability of the moment. God does not demand blind compliance. He invites honest interaction. Faith is not the absence of doubt. It is the courage to move through it. The greatest faith is not a feeling, but a decision, a choice to move your feet even when your mind is screaming. This is impossible. Let your doubt become the fuel for deeper questions, not the excuse for paralyzing inaction. The power is in the presence. When Moses asked how he could possibly achieve this mission, God's only reply was, "I will be with you." The power to accomplish your impossible task is not in your training, your eloquence, or your resources. The power wasn't in the shepherd's staff. The power was in the promise of the accompaniment. You don't need a stronger voice, a bigger budget, or a more charismatic personality. You need a stronger trust in the invisible hand guiding your journey. When the pressure is overwhelming, stop looking at the problem and remember the promise. You do not walk this path alone. His presence is your ultimate qualification. Leadership starts by serving. The true definition of leadership is not measured by the crown you wear, but by the towels you carry. Moses' first act of powerful intervention in Egypt, decades before the burning bush, was defending the oppressed, the Hebrew slave being beaten by an Egyptian. The heart of the leader is the heart of the servant. If you are unwilling to stoop to meet the needs of those you lead, you are not a leader. You are a tyrant in waiting. True authority flows from genuine compassion. Your purpose must be focused outward. Ask yourself not what you gain from the call, but who you are positioned to help. Divine timing is the only timing. God waited until Moses was 80 years old before activating his destiny. 80, decades past the age when most people believe their productive life is over. This is a crucial lesson for our impatient, instant gratification culture. You cannot rush a divine process. The 40 years in the desert were as necessary as the 40 years of leadership. If you feel like your life is on pause or that the window of opportunity has closed, release that anxiety. Trust the pace of your purpose. God's clock is never slow. It is always right. There is a season for growth, a season for quiet, and then a sudden appointed season for explosion. Wait with dignity, for your moment is coming. The rod is what you already hold. God asked a startling question to a man paralyzed by fear. What is in your hand? Moses just held a shepherd's staff, an ordinary piece of wood, a tool of his temporary trade. Yet that simple staff became the instrument of the plagues and the parting of the sea. You already have the tools, the talents, the resources you need. Stop waiting for the grand, new equipment. Stop envying the gifts of others. Start with what you have. Your life experience, your quiet skill, your small platform, and surrender it fully. God doesn't need to give you something new. He just needs to anoint what you already possess, and He will turn it into magic. 11. Your voice is necessary. Moses felt his speech was poor, a perceived weakness that he used as an excuse. God provided Aaron, but Moses was still the ultimate authority and the one who received the vision. Don't let a perceived weakness silence your essential message. If you feel inadequate in one area, God will either strengthen that area or strategically surround you with the people who compensate for it. If you have a purpose, if you have been called out, God will absolutely find a way to express it. Never let a personal insecurity, your perceived lack of polish, eloquence, or education stand in the way of a divine command. Your raw, honest voice is precisely what the world needs to hear. Courage is re-entering the fire. The call was not forward, it was backward. It required Moses to go back to Egypt, the very place of his trauma, his failure, and his deep-seated fear. He had to face the memory of the murder, the ghost of his past, and the power of Pharaoh, the man who wanted him dead. True courage is not a denial of fear, but a walk through it. It is facing your trauma, your past disappointments, and the source of your deepest pain, because you know that God's purpose for you is greater than your fear. You must return to the source of your fear, not to be consumed, but to prove to yourself and the enemy that you are no longer a fugitive. You are an agent of freedom. The world will not understand your call. Pharaoh did not accept Moses' message. He ridiculed it. The Israelites, the very people Moses came to save, often rejected and complained against him. When you are called out, you will inevitably be misunderstood. The people in your life, friends, family, colleagues who are comfortable in the ordinary, will find your move toward the impossible confusing, even threatening. Don't let the noise of the crowd drown out the unique, intimate voice of your God. Your calling is not subject to public opinion. It's a contract between you and the divine. Keep your focus elevated and your direction clear, even when you must walk alone. Obedience precedes miracles. Before the plagues began, Moses had to stretch out his hand. Before the water turned to blood, before the frogs appeared, he had to perform a simple, specific, and seemingly powerless act. God will not show you the full path. He just needs one step of obedience to unleash the miraculous. We often wait for a sign so grand that we cannot possibly fail. God demands that we move in faith before the evidence appears. Your obedience is the ignition key for the divine intervention you seek. Do the small, specific thing He asked of you today, and watch how it prepares the stage for the massive miracle tomorrow night. Your calling will bring opposition. The very moment Moses stood up and presented God's demand for freedom, Pharaoh hardened his heart and increased the labor for the slaves. The work got harder, not easier. When you commit to your purpose, expect resistance. Expect the external pressure to increase. The enemy does not fight a defeated person. The size of your trial reveals the true size of your destiny. If your life is suddenly filled with friction and challenge, take heart. It means you are moving towards something powerful that the darkness does not want to see realized. Hold the line. The pressure is simply proving the strength of the vessel. So faith is seeing the invisible. The parting of the Red Sea was not just a miracle. It was an act of audacious, terrifying faith. With an entire nation trapped between the Egyptian army and an insurmountable wall of water, Moses lifted his rod over a chaotic, roaring wave. To walk on water, you must first believe the chaos will separate. Faith is the ability to look at an impossible circumstance and still see the invisible solution. It is the conviction that God's instructions, no matter how ridiculous they sound in the moment, will hold true. Do not let your sight restrict your faith. Believe in the blueprint, even when you are standing in the middle of the deluge. The fear you face is not for you alone. When Moses led the Israelites through the sea, his singular bravery was a bridge for an entire nation. His courage created the path for the fearful, the elderly, and the children. Your courage is not just for your own relief. It is for the liberation of others. You are called to be a pioneer. Every painful step you take in faith is clearing a wider, safer path for those who follow your leadership, whether they are your children, your colleagues, or your community. The bravery you display in your private storm becomes the public testimony that sets others free. Never settle for the half miracle. Immediately after the spectacular deliverance at the Red Sea, the people complained in the desert, yearning for the food and comfort they had in Egyptian slavery. They wanted to go back. You cannot go back to comfort after you've tasted freedom. The half miracle is the most dangerous place to be. You're out of the old bondage, but you have yet to claim the new promise. Do not let nostalgia for the familiar prison sabotage your journey to the promised land. Keep your feet moving, keep your eyes forward. The small, temporary difficulty of the desert is not worth trading for the certainty of the past chains. God feeds you in the barren place, manna from heaven, water from a rock. God sustained the Israelites in a landscape that was biologically impossible to support them. This is the promise of your call. God will sustain you in the impossible landscape. Your survival is not dependent on the earth's natural resources, but on the heaven's divine provision. Stop looking to the earth for your sustenance. Look to the hand that created the stars. When you are on a divine assignment, your provision is guaranteed. It may not look like what you expect, but it will always be exactly what you need, perfectly timed. Choose. The call will teach you humility. Moses was proclaimed the most humble man on earth. This humility did not come from an innate personality trait. It was forged through 40 years of solitude and 40 years of leading a constantly complaining, often rebellious people. Success and power can easily corrupt. The weight of being called out can swell the ego. True greatness is always anchored by true humility. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less often. It is the profound understanding that the power flowing through you is not from you. Always remember the desert. Always remember the sheep. You cannot lead alone. It was Jethro, Moses' father-in-law and a humble priest, who wisely counseled him to stop trying to judge every case and delegate the workload. Trying to control everything is a sign of fear, not strength. It is the ego's way of saying, only I can do this right. Effective leadership is shared burden and empowered team. You are called to be the visionary, not the bottleneck. Learn to trust, learn to delegate, and most importantly, learn to celebrate the strengths of those you lead. The health of your call depends on the strength of your circle. Intercession is your highest work. Moses repeatedly, fiercely, and successfully begged God to spare the Israelites from destruction after their countless failings. He stood in the gap. He used his relationship with the divine not for personal gain, but for the life of others. Your calling is not just about your personal success. It is about your capacity to stand up for others, to use your platform, your influence, and your access to plead for mercy and advocate for justice. Your highest work is often done in the quiet moments of prayer and advocacy for those who cannot stand for themselves. 3. You will still get angry in a moment of white-hot frustration with the ungrateful people. Moses struck the rock instead of simply speaking to it as God commanded. Even great faith is not immune to frustration and human temper. You will make mistakes out of human error, exhaustion, or righteous anger. When you fall short, be quick to repent, but remember that the mission is still alive. Grace must extend to your own imperfections. The goal is not to be flawless. The goal is to be faithful, learn from the error, accept the consequence, and return to the work with a humble heart. Q. A moment of disobedience can carry consequences. Because he struck the rock in anger, Moses was permitted only to see the promised land, not enter it. This is a sober lesson for everyone who feels the weight of a powerful calling. Your actions have consequences, even when your heart is pure and your intentions are exhausted. When you are placed on a public platform, the standard for your obedience is higher because your influence is greater. Stay vigilant in the little things. The small deviations from the instructions can sometimes prevent you from realizing the final, greatest reward. 5. True transformation is visible. When Moses returned from receiving the law on Mount Sinai, his face shone with such brilliance that the people could not look upon it. He had to wear a veil. When you spend intimate time with the divine, it will radiate from you. Your transformation is not just internal. It will change the way you move, the way you speak, and the very atmosphere around you. The world may not understand what has changed, but they will certainly perceive the light. This is the evidence that the call is real, that the journey has done its work, and that you have been fundamentally changed by the encounter with God. 26. Don't let the mountain be your end. Moses had to come down from the glory of Sinai, from the fire, the cloud, and the intense divine presence to face the stark, brutal reality of the golden calf. The people he was trying to save had already reverted to idolatry. The greatest test of your call is not how you act on the mountaintop, but how you act when the worship fades and reality sets in. When the emotional high is gone, and the people you lead have disappointed you, do you still return to the work? True leadership is demonstrated in the valley, in the aftermath of chaos, not just in the glory of the peak. Destiny requires letting go of control. Moses had to surrender the fate of the people to God's plan, surrender his brother Aaron's life to God's timing, and ultimately surrender his own control over the final destination. Surrender is the highest form of power. It's the moment you realize that the work is far too massive for your human strength, and you release it back to the omnipotent hands that orchestrated it all. Stop trying to micromanage the miracle. Trust the process, trust the timing, and trust the one who called you. Your greatest freedom comes when you stop trying to control the destiny you were only meant to carry. Quote, "The promised land is not always your resting place." Moses was allowed to see the land from the peak of Mount Nebo, but he was told he would not cross the Jordan River. Your purpose may be to prepare the way for the next generation. It is a profoundly humble lesson. Not every person who starts the journey gets to cross the finish line. A life well lived is a bridge, not a destination. Be content with your role as the forerunner. Be proud to have done the hard work of wilderness preparation. Your true legacy is not in the final reward you receive, but in the foundation you build for those who follow you. Your legacy is in the words you leave. Before his death, Moses delivered his final powerful teachings, the book of Deuteronomy, a lifetime of wisdom crystallized into final instruction. Your calling will outlive your body. The most enduring part of your life is the truth you impart, the wisdom you share, and the lessons you document. Invest your life in the truths that will remain. Do not chase fame, chase impact. Do not focus on titles, focus on teachings. What will you leave behind that is strong enough to guide the people long after your voice is silenced? 30. Your end is the beginning for others. The moment Moses died, Joshua stepped forward, ready to complete the mission. The transition was seamless because Moses had faithfully mentored, prepared, and empowered his successor. Your greatest work is empowering those who come after you. The true measure of your life, the final summation of your successful call, is the strength you transfer to the next generation. Your leadership should not create followers. It should create new leaders. Die empty, knowing that the purpose is larger than you, and that you have prepared others to carry the torch forward. This is the relentless beauty of the call. It is the profound, overwhelming grace that looks at your mess, the murder, the stutter, the decades of doubt, and sees your masterpiece. It is the divine alchemy that takes the raw, wounded, and utterly unqualified human being you are. and initiates the final, magnificent work of transformation. It took a broken prince, haunted by the blood on his hands, and turned him into a fearless prophet who stood before the most powerful empire on earth and demanded freedom. It took a murderer and made him a lawgiver, the vessel through which the very moral architecture of the world was delivered. It took a man who stuttered and made him the voice of liberation for millions. This is the power of a God who calls you out. Maybe God isn't calling you out to break you, but to build you, to tear down the fragile, convenient, and limited identity you've constructed over years of fear and self-doubt, and replace it with the unbreakable destiny He placed within you before time began. Look back at the path you've traveled. The wilderness you survived was never meant to be your grave. It was meant to be your forge. It was where the heat of affliction hammered out the impurities, where the silence forced you to finally listen, and where the lack of human help made room for divine reliance. Every tear shed in the desert was merely watering the seed of your purpose. Every moment of isolation was a deep training session for the heavy mantle of leadership you are about to assume. Your time in the shadow has prepared you for the light. Now, step into this final defining moment. Look at the rod in your hand. It is not just wood. It is the symbol of your everyday, ordinary capabilities that God is waiting to infuse with His omnipotence. Look at the sea of chaos before you. The Red Sea was not an obstacle. It was a testament. It was God's dramatic display that the things that look insurmountable to you are merely pathways for Him. Your chaos is merely the canvas for your greatest miracle. Look at the mountain of your challenge. Whether it is the weight of the law, the frustration of the people, or the sheer terror of responsibility, the mountain is the place where you go to meet God, to receive your instructions and to be purified by His presence. The weight is there because you are strong enough to carry it. He has already prepared the way. He has already supplied the power. He has already secured the victory. The only thing missing is your complete surrender. All He requires is for you to finally fully stand, to lift your head from the dust of past failures and fix your gaze on the horizon of the promise. To stretch your hand, the same hand that was once gripped by fear, and command the impossible in faith. To believe in the simple, profound promise that Moses carried, "I will be with you." When you stand, you are not standing in your own strength. You are standing in the current of millennia of faithfulness. You are standing as the culmination of every lesson, every trial, and every whispered promise. You are standing finally as the person you were always meant to be. Music, peak emotional intensity, but still controlled, a powerful, hopeful crescendo. Strings are dominant. Do not wait for your voice to be perfect. The perfection is in the message, not the delivery. Do not wait for your fear to disappear. Courage is the decision to move forward while the fear still screams. Do not wait for all the pieces to align. The alignment happens as you move. God has called you out of obscurity, out of comfort, out of doubt. And on the other side of this moment, on the other side of your radical, immediate obedience, your true, liberated and powerful life is waiting. The mantle is on the ground. Pick it up. The commission is sealed. Speak the words. Your name is being called. It is echoing through the canyons of your conscience, a sound you can no longer silence. It is the call of your destiny, the final invitation to leave the smallness behind. The desert has done its work. The years of running are over. The lessons are complete. The excuses you have clung to, the "I can't," the "I'm not ready," the "what if I fail," they are just ghosts of a past season. You are no longer that person. You have been forged. You have been instructed. You have been anointed. The story of Moses is not an ancient history lesson. It is a mirror. It shows you that the highest callings are reserved not for the flawless, but for the faithful. For the ones who are willing to say, "Here I am," even when their knees are knocking. This is the pivot point. The moment where you stop preparing to live and finally start living the life you were prepared for. Now step forward. Step out of the shadow of your mistakes. Step out of the tent of complacency. Step onto the soil of the promise. When God calls you out, answer with your action. Answer with your belief. Answer with the unshakable certainty that the God who called you is more than enough to sustain you, because on the other side of obedience, everything changes, the running stops, the destiny begins,